So with my college football schedule preview and point spread prediction videos. Today I'll be doing the Oklahoma State Cowboys. So Oklahoma State gets two guaranteed wins against little teams in the non-conference schedule. Tennessee, Martin, and Tulsa. But their non-conference schedule is harder this year than it was last year because last year they played two little teams in Arkansas, and this year they play Oregon, a team that is going to be preseason top 10. And with this game being on the road, Oklahoma State's chance in this game, I think, is not much above 0%. Comparing talent between Oregon and Oklahoma State, Oregon's really on a different universe than Oklahoma State is. And I think Oregon's going to be way too physical of a team for Oklahoma State to handle. And Oklahoma State has six different conference opponents than they did last year. So last year they played Utah, West Virginia, BYU, Arizona State, TCU, and Colorado. And this year, instead, they will play Baylor, Arizona, Houston, Cincinnati, Central Florida, and Iowa State. And I think that makes the conference schedule easier than it was last year because BYU, Arizona State, and Iowa State are probably all going to be similar teams this year. And Oklahoma State this year will just have to play one of them instead of two. And this year, Oklahoma State gets to play four of the terrible uh, teams from the conference last year. Arizona, Houston, Cincinnati, and Central Florida. And last year they only got to play two of the bad teams, Utah and West Virginia, and neither one of those teams were as bad as the four teams that Oklahoma State will be playing this year. But replacing TCU with Baylor, I don't think is going to make much of a difference because I think those are going to be similar teams this season. And I'll go ahead and tell you that Oklahoma State will not go winless in the conference again. And even though Oklahoma State was for sure the worst team in the Big 12 last year, and at least on paper, there's not really much reason to be optimistic about them uh, this year because the Big 12 right now is the most unpredictable Power Four conference. There are no games on Oklahoma State's schedule where I would say they have a 0% chance of winning. And it's nice that they get to play Arizona, Houston, and Cincinnati all in a row. And for Oklahoma State to make a bowl game, they're very likely going to need to win two of those. And Mike Gundy, I still think has a higher ceiling as a coach than any of those other teams coaches do. Oklahoma State down to play two road games in a row against Texas Tech and Kansas. It is good news that they didn't get two places that are known for being really tough places to play at. But Texas Tech seems like an unlikely win for Oklahoma State because Texas Tech was a much better team than Oklahoma State was last year, and they returned 30% more of their production than Oklahoma State does. And Texas Tech ranked first in the transfer portal this season. And Kansas is a game where I would give Oklahoma State a decent chance to win uh, because Kansas is on the low level of talent too. But Kansas's quarterback Jalen Daniels is probably a better quarterback than Oklahoma State is going to have this year, and he's for sure a much more experienced quarterback than Oklahoma State is going to have. And Oklahoma State's first bye week comes at a bad time because it comes before Tulsa, which is a team that, as bad as Oklahoma State was last year, they still beat easily. And their second bye week, I don't think, comes at a very good time either because it comes before Kansas State. And Kansas State and Iowa State are the two games on the conference schedule that I would give Oklahoma State the least chance of winning. But Oklahoma State not only was a much worse team than both Kansas State and Iowa State were last year, but Kansas State and Iowa State both returned 58% of their production from last season. And while I realize that's not a whole lot, it's a lot more than Oklahoma State returns. Oklahoma State just returns 45% of their production. I know you might think that's a good thing because the team was so bad last year, but it's not all good news because the Oklahoma State loses a lot of really good players. Ollie Gordon at running back, and they lose two good receivers, Presley and Stribling, and they lose Kendall Daniels, who was a really good linebacker, and Trey Rucker, who was a really good safety. And Oklahoma State has not been recruiting well recently, and they've not had much portal luck either. And Kansas State and Iowa State both have better quarterbacks than Oklahoma State is probably going to have. So now for the point spread prediction. Games in the green are games where I think Oklahoma State will be favored to win by a blowout at 20 or more points, and there's two of those at Tennessee Martin and at Tulsa. Games in the orange are games where I think Oklahoma State will be a double digit underdog, 10 to 9 points, and there's uh, two of those, Oregon and Iowa State. Games in the pink are games where I think Oklahoma State will be about a field goal favorite, 1 to 5 points, and there's three of those: Houston, Cincinnati, and Central Florida. Games in the yellow are games where I think Oklahoma State will be about a touchdown underdog, 6 to 9 points, and there's two of those: Texas Tech and Kansas State. Games in the gray are games where I think Oklahoma State will be about a field goal underdog, and there's three of those: Baylor, Arizona, and Kansas. So Tennessee Martin, Oklahoma State should be favored in that one by around 5 touchdowns because they're an FCS team. And Tulsa, the spread in that one should be around 3 touchdowns. And Houston, that one is just in the pink because it's a home game, and the same for Cincinnati. Those would be gray games if they were on the road. But I'll say Oklahoma State will be favored by 3 against Houston, and probably just a point against Cincinnati. And Central Florida, it would also be a gray game if it was on the road. But because it's at home, I'll say Oklahoma State will be a 3 point favorite in that one. And Oregon, I think Oklahoma State will be like an 18-point underdog in that one. It wouldn't even be shocking if that was a red game where Oklahoma State would be a blowout underdog. And Texas Tech, I think, will be, I'll say, a 6 point favorite over Oklahoma State. And Kansas State, I'll say the spread will be 7 points. And Iowa State, I think Oklahoma State will be about a 10-point underdog in that one. And Baylor, I think, will be, I'll say, a 5-point favorite over Oklahoma State. And Arizona, that would be a pink game if it was at home, but on the road, I'll say Arizona will be about a point favorite over Oklahoma State. And then Kansas, I'll say, will be a 4-point favorite over Oklahoma State. So that will be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.